Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to explore one of the most interesting modern United States dollar coins ever produced. First up, the 1979 Susan B. Anthony $1 coin. At first glance, this small silver-colored dollar may look like an ordinary coin, but collectors know that some 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollars can be much more interesting than their face value. The 1979 issue is especially important because it was the very first year this coin was officially released into circulation. That makes 1979 a fascinating date for collectors, historians, and anyone who enjoys searching through old coins. So if you have a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar in your collection, stay with me because we are going to look at exactly what makes this coin interesting and which details you should check before deciding what it might be worth. The Susan B. Anthony dollar was created to honor Susan B. Anthony, an important American figure who worked for women's voting rights and equality. The United States Mint introduced the coin in 1979 as a smaller alternative to the large Eisenhower dollar. The idea was to create a dollar coin that would be easier for the public to carry in use. The coin was designed by chief engraver Frank Gasparro, whose work gave the new dollar its distinctive appearance. The obverse features a portrait of Susan B. Anthony facing right, while the reverse shows an adaptation of the Apollo 11 insignia, featuring an eagle landing on the moon with the Earth visible in the background. This design connected the coin to both American history and the nation's space achievements. One of the most important things about the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar is that several different versions and mint products were produced during the year. Coins were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, and the mint mark can help identify where a particular coin was made. Philadelphia coins generally have no mint mark, Denver coins carry a D, and San Francisco coins carry an S, but simply finding a mint mark does not automatically make a coin rare. Collectors need to examine the coin's condition, variety, strike quality, and possible errors. This is especially important with the 1979 issue because some varieties are much more desirable than ordinary examples. The 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar, produced at the Philadelphia Mint, is particularly famous because of different obverse varieties. One of the best-known varieties is the 1979 wide rim, sometimes called the near-date variety. On this version, the date appears noticeably closer to the rim than on the common narrow rim or far-date version. This difference resulted from a modified hub used later in the production year. Collectors often pay close attention to the position of the date because it can help distinguish the varieties. If you have a 1979 Philadelphia dollar, comparing the date placement with reliable reference images can be worthwhile. Another interesting version is the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar. San Francisco produced both proof coins and circulation strike coins, and the S mint mark itself went through different appearances. The famous 1979 Type 2 proof has a clearer, more rounded S mint mark compared with the earlier Type 1 variety. The Type 2 proof is one of the varieties that collectors specifically search for. However, it is important to remember that a proof coin is different from an ordinary circulation strike. Proofs were specially manufactured for collectors, generally with polished dies and specially prepared planchets, creating a distinctive appearance. The 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar was struck at the Denver Mint and carries the D mint mark. Most examples are relatively common, particularly in circulated grades. However, condition can make a dramatic difference in collector interest. A coin that has spent years circulating may have scratches, contact marks, discoloration, or wear, while a high-grade uncirculated example can have much sharper details and better overall preservation. This is why two coins with exactly the same year and mint mark can have very different market values. When evaluating your 1979 dollar, look carefully at the portrait, lettering, date, eagle, and other high points for signs of wear. The condition of any 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar is extremely important. Coin collectors generally use grading systems to describe preservation, with grades ranging from heavily circulated pieces to extremely high-grade uncirculated examples. A circulated coin with significant wear may trade for only a small amount above face value, while exceptionally preserved examples can attract stronger collector demand. Coins that have been professionally authenticated and graded can sometimes bring more attention because buyers have greater confidence in their condition. However, certification alone does not guarantee a high value. The coin still needs to be desirable in its particular grade and variety. Errors and unusual minting varieties can also make a Susan B. Anthony dollar more interesting. A genuine mint error occurs when something goes wrong during the manufacturing process, creating a coin that differs from the normal design. Examples of error categories can include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, doubled features, or other unusual production mistakes. but there is an important warning for beginners. Not every strange-looking coin is a valuable error. Damage that happened after the coin left the mint can sometimes look unusual, but generally does not carry the same collector premium. Before assuming that your coin is rare, it is best to compare it with known varieties, and for significant pieces, consider professional authentication. Another reason collectors enjoy the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar is its historical significance. This was the first United States circulating coin to feature a woman who was not a fictional or symbolic figure in such a prominent way. Susan B. Anthony's appearance on the coin represented a major moment in the history of American coinage. Although the dollar did not become as popular in everyday commerce as the mint had hoped, it remained an important part of U.S. numismatic history. The 1979 release, therefore, represents much more than just a $1 denomination. It represents a change in how American history and important historical figures were represented on circulating money. When determining the value of a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar, never rely only on the year. Start by identifying the mint mark, then determine whether the coin is a regular circulation strike or proof. Next, examine the date placement, especially on Philadelphia examples, and check the San Francisco S mint mark if you have a proof. After that, carefully evaluate the condition. Finally, look for genuine varieties or mint errors. These factors work together to determine collector interest. A normal circulated 1979 dollar may have little premium, while a scarce variety, high-grade example, or authenticated major error can be significantly more desirable. It is also important to understand that online claims about extremely high values can sometimes be misleading. A coin being described as worth thousands or worth millions does not mean every example of that year has that value. Auction prices usually depend on the exact coin, its grade, variety, certification, provenance, and buyer demand. Therefore, if you discover a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar, don't immediately assume that it is either worthless or extremely valuable. Instead, inspect it carefully and identify exactly what you have. This approach is much more reliable than judging a coin only by its date. For collectors, the 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar is an excellent example of how small details can transform an ordinary-looking coin into an interesting numismatic discovery. The date, mint mark, variety, proof status, condition, and possible error can all change the story behind the coin. Even if your particular example is worth only around its face value or a modest premium, it can still be an important piece of American coinage history. For someone just beginning to collect coins, studying the different 1979 varieties can also teach valuable skills such as identifying mint marks, recognizing die varieties, understanding grading, and distinguishing genuine mint errors from post-mint damage. So before you spend or trade away a 1979 Susan B. Anthony $1 coin, take a closer look. Check whether it has a P, D, or S mint mark, or no mint mark if it is from Philadelphia. Examine the date placement, especially if it is a 1979 P example. If it is an S mint coin, determine whether it is a proof and inspect the style of the S mint mark. Then look closely at the overall condition and search for legitimate mint-made varieties or errors. A little careful examination can reveal details that are easy to miss with the naked eye. The 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar may not have become the everyday success that the United States Mint originally expected, but from a collector's perspective, it became a fascinating chapter in American numismatic history. Its first-year status, connection to Susan B. Anthony, multiple mint locations, famous 1979 P wide rim variety, and different San Francisco proof varieties give collectors plenty to investigate. And that is exactly what makes coin collecting so exciting. Sometimes the most interesting discoveries are hiding in coins that initially look completely ordinary. So if you have a 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar at home, don't just look at the number 1979. Look at the mint mark, the date placement, the strike, the condition, and the tiny details that separate one variety from another. Take clear photographs, compare the coin with trusted references, and if you believe you have an unusual variety or major mint error, consider having it examined by a reputable numismatic professional or grading service. Whether your coin turns out to be a common circulated dollar or a desirable collector variety, it is still a fascinating piece of American history. And that's the story of the 1979 Susan B. Anthony $1 coin. From its historic introduction to its different mint marks, varieties, proof issues, errors, and collector appeal, this little dollar has much more to offer than its simple appearance suggests. If you enjoy discovering rare coins and learning what makes ordinary-looking American money valuable, make sure you keep checking your old coins carefully. You never know when a small detail could turn an ordinary-looking coin into a much more interesting collectible. Thanks for watching, and keep searching, keep learning, and most importantly, keep looking closely at your coins. Next coin, the 1980s Susan B. Anthony $1 coin, an interesting piece of modern United States coinage that deserves a closer examination. At first glance, this small dollar may appear to be just another ordinary coin, but collectors know that the details can tell a much more interesting story. The 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar was produced at the San Francisco Mint, and the S mint mark is one of the first things you should check when identifying this coin. While most examples are not extremely rare, certain conditions, varieties, proof issues, and unusual mint errors can make individual examples more desirable to collectors. So if you have one of these coins in your collection, stay with me as we explore its history, design, production, varieties, condition, and the factors that can influence its value. The Susan B. Anthony dollar was introduced by the United States Mint in 1979. It was designed as a smaller and more convenient replacement for the large Eisenhower dollar. The coin was named after Susan B. Anthony, a major figure in the American women's suffrage movement. Putting her portrait on a circulating United States dollar was historically significant because it recognized an important woman in American history on a prominent coin denomination. The obverse portrait was designed by chief engraver Frank Gasparro, while the reverse features an eagle approaching the moon, based on the Apollo 11 mission insignia. This combination gives the coin an unusual connection between American social history and the country's space program. The 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar was struck at the San Francisco Mint. The S mint mark appears on the obverse, just above the date and near the lower portion of the portrait area. This mint mark tells collectors where the coin was produced. In 1980, Susan B. Anthony dollars were also produced at other United States mint facilities, so identifying the mint mark is an important first step when examining an example. If your coin clearly shows an S, you can identify it as a San Francisco issue. However, the mint mark by itself does not automatically mean that the coin is rare or extremely valuable. Collectors need to examine the entire coin. The design of the 1980s dollar follows the basic design established in 1979. On the obverse, Susan B. Anthony's portrait faces right. Around the portrait are the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. On the reverse, an eagle is shown descending toward the surface of the moon, with Earth visible behind it. The inscriptions include United States of America, EPLURBUSUNUM, and $1. The edge of the coin is reeded, which gives the dollar its distinctive texture when held between the fingers. The coin is composed of copper and nickel over a copper core rather than being a silver coin, an important detail for anyone who might mistakenly assume that its appearance means it contains silver. One of the most important things to understand about the 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar is the difference between a regular circulation strike and a proof coin. San Francisco produced Susan B. Anthony dollars for both circulation and collector purposes. Proof coins were specially manufactured using specially prepared dies and planchets, giving them a sharper appearance and often a contrasting reflective background. A proof coin should not automatically be considered rare, because many were intentionally produced for collectors. However, exceptionally preserved examples, particularly those receiving high professional grades, can attract stronger collector interest. When examining your 1980s dollar, condition is extremely important. A circulated coin may show wear on Susan B. Anthony's portrait, the lettering, the date, and the reverse design. Scratches, contact marks, discoloration, and other signs of circulation can also reduce its appeal. On the other hand, an uncirculated example that has never experienced normal circulation can preserve much sharper details. The highest grade coins are particularly interesting to specialists because achieving an exceptional grade requires not only good preservation, but also strong strike quality and attractive surfaces. Another factor that collectors should investigate is the possibility of a mint error. Errors occur when something goes wrong during the manufacturing process at the mint. A genuine error might involve an unusual strike, an off-center design, a clipped planchet, a broad strike, or another recognized production mistake. However, collectors need to be careful because many coins that appear unusual are simply damaged after leaving the mint. Scratches, dents, flattened edges, chemical discoloration, and other post-mint damage generally do not create the kind of premium associated with genuine mint errors. If you think your 1980s dollar has an unusual error, careful comparison with authenticated examples is important. The San Francisco S mint mark is another feature worth examining closely. Mint marks on United States coins can sometimes exist in different styles, depending on the year and production process. However, collectors should not assume that every tiny difference in the appearance of a mint mark represents a valuable variety. A genuine collectible variety generally needs to be recognized and documented by reliable numismatic references. This is particularly important in the age of online videos and social media, where unusual claims about coin values can spread very quickly. The market value of a 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar depends heavily on exactly what type of coin you have. A typical circulated example may have only a modest premium over face value, depending on demand and condition. Many ordinary examples are relatively affordable for collectors. However, high-grade uncirculated coins, particularly those that receive strong professional grades, can be more desirable. Proof examples can also attract collector interest, especially when they have excellent surfaces and strong contrast. Genuine mint errors and recognized varieties may command additional premiums, but their value depends on the exact error, rarity, condition, and demand among collectors. This is why it is not accurate to say that every 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar is worth hundreds, thousands, or more. Coin values are not determined simply by the date and mint mark. The same date and mint mark can appear on thousands or millions of coins, while only a small percentage may have exceptional characteristics. Professional auction results can also vary depending on grade and buyer interest. If you see a dramatic value claim online, always ask what exact variety, grade, and certification the example had before assuming your coin has the same value. Another interesting aspect of the Susan B. Anthony dollar is its place in American history. The coin represents an attempt by the United States government to introduce a smaller dollar that could be more convenient for the public. Unfortunately, the public did not embrace the coin as strongly as expected. Its small size and similarity to the quarter caused confusion for some users, and the coin did not achieve the widespread circulation that officials had hoped for. Nevertheless, the Susan B. Anthony dollar remains an important part of U.S. numismatic history, and its connection to the women's suffrage movement gives it an additional layer of historical interest. For collectors, the 1980s issue can be a great coin to study because it teaches several important lessons about modern coin collecting. First, always identify the mint mark. Second, determine whether the coin is a circulation strike or proof. Third, examine the condition carefully. Fourth, look for recognized varieties or genuine mint errors. Finally, research actual market results rather than relying on sensational claims. These simple steps can help you become a more informed collector and prevent you from overlooking important details. If you are holding a 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar right now, begin your examination with the obverse. Look at the date and the S mint mark. Then inspect Susan B. Anthony's portrait for signs of wear or unusual doubling. Move to the reverse and examine the eagle, moon, earth, lettering, and rim. Check the edge for its normal reeded appearance. Next, determine whether the coin has the appearance of a proof or a regular strike. Finally, take a look at the overall surface. Avoid cleaning the coin, because cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector interest. One of the biggest mistakes beginning collectors make is cleaning an old coin because they believe a brighter appearance will make it more valuable. In reality, collectors generally prefer coins with their original surfaces. Harsh cleaning can leave scratches, unnatural brightness, or other evidence of alteration. If you think you have an important 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar, it is usually better to preserve it as found rather than attempting to make it look newer. Another important point is authentication. If your coin appears to have a major mint error, or you believe it is an exceptionally high-grade example, professional evaluation can be useful. Reputable grading services can authenticate and grade coins, giving collectors a standardized opinion about condition. Certification can make it easier for buyers and sellers to understand exactly what they are looking at. However, certification fees should be considered carefully because not every ordinary dollar coin will justify the cost of professional grading. The 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar is therefore much more than a $1 denomination. It is a historical artifact connected to Susan B. Anthony, the women's suffrage movement, the development of modern U.S. coinage, and the legacy of America's space program. Its San Francisco origin gives it a distinctive identity, while proof issues, condition differences, and possible errors provide collectors with additional areas to investigate. Even when an individual example is not particularly valuable, it can still be an excellent addition to a collection because of the story behind the coin. So if you find a 1980s Susan B. Anthony $1 coin, don't immediately judge it only by its face value. Take a closer look at the mint mark, the condition, the strike quality, the surfaces, and the overall appearance. Determine whether it is a regular strike or a proof, and carefully investigate any unusual characteristics. If you find something that appears to be a legitimate mint error or an especially high-grade example, Compare it with trusted references and consider professional authentication. In the end, the real excitement of coin collecting comes from discovery. A coin that looks ordinary at first can sometimes reveal an interesting variety, an unusual production characteristic, or a connection to an important moment in American history. The 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar is a perfect example of why collectors should never judge a coin too quickly. Its value can depend on details that are easy to miss, and its historical importance gives it appeal even beyond its monetary value. So before you spend, sell, or trade your 1980s Susan B. Anthony dollar, give it a careful examination. Check the S-mint mark, study the date, inspect both sides of the coin, evaluate its condition, and research any unusual features. Remember that not every 1980s dollar is rare, but certain high-grade examples, proof coins, recognized varieties, and genuine mint errors can be considerably more interesting to collectors. And that is what makes searching through old coins so exciting. You never know what small detail might be hiding in plain sight. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this detailed look at the 1980s Susan B. Anthony $1 coin, make sure to keep checking your old coins and learning about the details that collectors look for. Every coin has a story, and sometimes the most fascinating stories are found in coins that have been sitting unnoticed for decades. Keep collecting, keep researching, and always check your coins carefully before deciding what they are worth.